In this episode of Investors and Operators, we're going to learn about Edward Crawford, co-founder and president of Coltala Holdings, a Texas-based private equity holding company. His career has taken many different paths, starting with the Peace Corps in the Dominican Republic, Goldman Sachs, serving as a Navy intel officer, deploying to Latin America and Afghanistan, then coming back to Goldman Sachs, and finally starting Coltala Holdings. There's a lot of ground that we're going to cover today. Start off with, Edward, did I get that right on all that background?
Roger that. Bit of an ADD. A lot of different stuff, but yeah, you got it right.
In studying your crazy, interesting background, I think one of the first questions that I had was, what drew you to serving in the Peace Corps? Are there any particular experiences that really kind of stood out from that experience?
Yeah. So my grandfather escaped from Austria before Crystal Night, before the Holocaust, and he had served in the military. My other grandfather was Navy, and my dad served in the military, and really loved this country and what it's about. Coming from a grandfather that was an immigrant, just really loved America. And kind of what he loved about America was this kind of value system and this, you can really be something here. And so wanted to serve my country, and that combined with a strong Christian faith of just serving others and, showing that we are Christians through our love and service was something I felt passionately about. And so serving those less fortunate, thought was a great way to really start a career after college. I thought if I served first, then it would always be part of my life as opposed to waiting to serve one day or putting the money before service.
So you went down to the Dominican Republic, and can you talk about your experience down there with the Peace Corps?
Yeah. So it was a crazy experience. I lived in a small shack, and at one point had lost 50 pounds. I contracted had dengue and also amoebic dysentery, which is not fun. I don't recommend it unless you really have a weight loss program. But just went through some tough times. I was alone, and so emotionally, a lot of ups and downs. But the community really came to my aid, and really we built trust just through working together. And I think they saw I was there and that I really cared. And so we started a little cooperative, a coffee cooperative with a few farmers. With the objective of putting more coffee trees in the mountains. There's a lot of soil erosion there. Most of the border of Haiti is actually turned into desert, from tropical rainforest into desert. And coffee is a tree that grows for 40 years under shade, produces for 40 years, but it's a long-term investment, right? And so we wanted to try to get a better price. So we got a micro rotating lending fund for the co-op. And we got organic certification, which a lot of them couldn't even afford chemicals. So we got organic certification and pooled resources so we could sell the coffee at a better price, get better lending, and really help with the environment and keeping the soil in the mountains and kind of a long-term portfolio. So you can have mangoes in May, you can have avocados in October, and you can grow other stuff around coffee. But you've got a crop every year as opposed to corn, which you cut down, sun touches the soil. And it just turns to dust, and the soil forever falls from the mountain. So,
did they just you're going to the DR? Here's where you're going by yourself. Here's a backpack, and did you have a mission, or did you know you're getting yourself into?
No, but yeah, the Peace Corps. So the Peace Corps sets you with a partner in the community, right? And you generally have a project. In this case, I had a project, and without going into detail, it didn't work that well. So you also do a study. You meet with 150 people in the community, and I had a little Excel document and a little pad and pen, and interviewed all these people and said kind of, what are the needs in the community? And I realized that a lot of them were living very subsistence farming. They used to grow coffee, and they loved the days when they grew coffee, but the prices were tough. The lending was tough. And they weren't growing coffee that much anymore. And so we ended up getting some government to help. So we planted around 2 million trees ultimately. I found through that study that coffee was something that they felt passionately about, that could be a sustainable long-term kind of portfolio approach to agribusiness in the community. And so that's where the idea came from. And then I read a bunch of books about coffee and tried to convince some guys to do it. It took a while.
Wow, we could just spend a whole episode just going on that. But let's go to Well, actually, let's kind of dive a little bit deeper there because it kind of talks about service. And I know you spent, you know, a number of years in the military and the Navy and with your time with the Peace Corps. And I've been thinking about this lately about the idea of service and sacrifice. And I think right now, especially during, a global and nationwide pandemic, economic crisis, we have this tendency to really pull back and focus on ourselves and focus on our family. And, we need to be helping out other people. So I want to talk a little bit about what service and sacrifice means to you and kind of how that idea has been shaped throughout your life, and then maybe tying it to where we are today.
Yeah, I think service is always important, no matter what, and it's fascinating. I was in Dominican near Haiti, and there was Haitians that lived in a little tin shack with a dirt floor and never even had a bed, right? And I would wake up sometimes, and they would be over at my house with coffee and some bread, right? They were serving me, and it just blew me away, kind of. How selfish I can be sometimes, but that the poorest of the poor were serving this gringo that's, moved from America to help them. Right. And so it really, it doesn't matter where you are in life. There's always an opportunity to serve someone else, and it makes your life so much richer. And so I think it's tough when you're focused, to your point, on your family, and you may have lost your job and you're in a difficult situation. But I think it's always important to serve. And there's just it doesn't have to be big things. It doesn't have to be medium-sized things. It's really the most important is that just daily commitment to helping others, even in very small ways. It really adds up. So.
Do you have like a favorite quote or just a guiding thought that you've kind of had throughout your life?
Yeah. So I think two that come to mind are Anne Frank, "No one has ever been poor by giving." And I remember when I was going to the Peace Corps, I had a lot of kind of people, mentors that I talked to that said, "Why are you doing that? Why are you wasting 2 years of your life? And, in some foreign country, different language, like, you're not going to make any money. You're going to get behind." And I really don't believe in that. I think nobody's ever become poor by giving. It's made my life so much richer. And then the other one is really the Peace Corps motto that they adopted from Gandhi, but be the change you want to see in the world. I think there's with social media, it's just easy to talk. It's easy to tell other people, judge other people, and talk, and have this big microphone. But none of that really, it doesn't really help unless you roll up the sleeves and go do something. And so that's something, I felt like a lot of people were serving and getting killed, and that was a tough thing over in Afghanistan. And so I said, "Hey, I'm going to go help there." Right. There's a lot of poor people, throughout the world that need help. And so it's like, listen, I can talk about it or tweet about it, or I can just go try to spend some time. And so, where your checkbook goes and where your calendar goes, I think are very big indicators of where your heart is. And so those are kind of some mottos that I think have directed me over time to try to make the checkbook go towards those things. And then also look at the calendar and be real and say, hey, how much time am I spending helping other people, helping my family, right? And how much time am I spending, just for me, right?
Speaking of family, you have 3 kids, and I was wondering how you try to integrate the principle of serving others into your family habits. And I'm working through that now. Like, for example, my daughter and I, just on our little walk to daycare, let's get a trash bag and let's just pick up some trash. And it doesn't matter if we get 5 pieces or 50, but it's the idea of taking care of your community. So I'm interested, how you've integrated service into your family life.
Yeah, no, I think it's super important at an early age. I actually do kind of date nights with my kids, and we talk about a lot of this with my little girls. And we go on dates together to show them how they're supposed to be treated. And one of the things I did last year was I took Caroline to the Dominican Republic, and we served with the kids, and we went to the little church and went to the little community and kind of showed her how the other half lives. We send little girl to college, and then a little boy to college. Actually, if you see it in this picture in the background, over my shoulder, that little boy, his name's Joseline, but we sent him to college. And so Caroline got to spend time with him and understanding that, hey, this is somebody we helped go to college in Dominican. So trying to get them those experiences is really important. And then, serving in the church and that sort of thing as well, and serving each other. But yeah, it's, they follow, we're examples as parents. And so we can say a lot of stuff, but unless we're doing it, our kids are not going to do it. So
can you talk a little bit about your experience in the Navy and just when did you join and what exactly was the timeline with Goldman? Because I think it overlaps. And so how did you have these two jobs at once?
Yeah, so no, I joined the Navy Reserves. I went through an intelligence program, and it's a direct commission officer program. It's a great program, and went through that, and then started doing my 2 weeks a year, right, and weekends while I was at Goldman. So I started that. I got into that, and then went and worked at Goldman. So I was kind of doing both. I was in Miami for Goldman, so I'd see a lot of kind of Latin America. I was a member of Council on Foreign Relations, and have a Master's of Latin American Studies. So you learn a lot about the region, but then also would go down there. I'd go down to Guatemala and work with the Caibiles, the special forces down there, and in Guas City and Antigua. And so it was a neat opportunity to kind of have two different roles, but both somewhat focused on Latin America. So I was in SOC South, Special Operations Latin America, is where I started. And then ultimately had two friends that were killed in Afghanistan in Extortion 17, 2011. And so sat in that memorial service and kind of made the decision that I'm serving in Latin America, but I want to go help over in Afghanistan. After watching all the men and women who had done 7-8 deployments and wanted to lend a hand. And so that moment was really kind of a gut check for me, and wanted to, go over and lend a hand. But also, to your point with children, it was a tough moment because I had a 2-year-old and ended up having a 6-day-old son before I left. And so, there's a lot of men and women who serve, but there's the spouse that's left behind with a lot of the hard work. And really, Mary, my wife, is the one that, I had a job, I knew what I was doing, but she had 2 very small kids and nobody to help her out, no husband to help her out at home. So she was really,
and a kid that was 6 days old.
Yeah. He was born on D-Day, June 6th. I'll never forget. And then left, 6 or 7 days later. So she's a true hero, trooper.
The notion of obligation, and I found being exposed to a lot of veterans over the past 3 years that there's a deeper connection with the idea of obligation. And, from my background and, people I've been exposed to in the finance community, it's maybe I'm just speaking for myself, maybe like a superficial sense of giving and a superficial sense of obligation, which is what I felt in the first maybe 1 or 2 years of being involved in veteran transition. And like the past year and a half is when it became more of an obligation. But I was wondering how it's evolved for you and just kind of what that word, like how you can kind of dimensionalize that word obligation and sacrifice.
Yeah, we have, we talk about at Coltala a lot, kind of the Navy values of honor, courage, commitment, and kind of duty and honor, right? And we have I like to, use the phrase, to whom much is given, much is required. And being born in an incredible country like this, and having been given all this opportunity, there's just for a lot of military men and women, there's a duty to take care of what we've been given and pass it on to the next generation. This country continues to get better in so many ways, has its missteps and has a lot of different faults. But what it stands for, and being willing to die for that, once you've been in that chair, it's really hard to ever not feel a pride and an ownership and a duty to your country, right? And that's picking up trash on the streets. It's voting. It's paying your taxes as a civilian. Run war veterans funds with some friends, and it's sending people that were in the military that would sign on the dotted line to die for this country to Congress, right? So I think that that duty or obligation, that sense of duty and obligation, is something that is very clear in the military and hard to beat out of you if you've been in for a little while.
Can you talk a little bit about Coltala and how you're integrating, these principles of serving others into your business? Because when people think about private equity holding companies, investing in companies, they don't necessarily, I wouldn't say principles in the first top 10 might be serving others or maybe just framing it that way. So I'd love to hear just kind of how you think about that and building Coltala.
Yeah. So when Ralph and I got together to build the Coltala, Ralph and I are both faith-based guys, and we said, how can we make an impact? How can we kind of make the world better and have a different model here? And so our model is that of a holding company, where we acquire and operate and run businesses in partnership with the management, right, for the long term, right? And we've looked at the segments we've gotten in and said, hey, what are areas that we feel passionately about, right? We're in a home health business right now that takes care of elderly and actually takes care of hospice patients in the last phase of their life, right?
Very familiar with that. Two times.
And that is an incredible, this is the last phase of someone's life, and that hospice nurse that sits with that person is their best friend and the last person they get to know in an 80-year life, 75-year-old life. My grandmother's 99. She's not gone to hospice yet, right? It's super, super important. And so to be able to support a business like that and these great, nurses, LVNs, therapists that are on the front lines during COVID doing this work is something we just feel passionate about. And so we, that's our, we're not getting shot at. We're not in Afghanistan or in the Peace Corps or any of this kind of stuff now, but we feel like we're making an impact there. We run an HVAC business that has techs all over DFW. We have 4 businesses in Dallas, Fort Worth, right? Treating people well in their homes that are worried about getting COVID, whose HVAC went out and they have 1 unit and they've got all their kids at home and it's sweltering hot, and fixing that quickly and being respectful and wearing a mask. That's super important to us. And then I would say the last thing is, the leaders of the businesses and the ones, it's interesting, we attract leaders and we look for leaders that are servant leaders. And in both these businesses, we have 2 individuals that just put others first, are on the front lines. They talk about be the change that you want to see in the world, just authentic, principled leaders. So we really, some private equity folks just do transactions. And we operate businesses and we love working with the teams and we take it very seriously and we're passionate about it. And frankly, we love it and we have a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So the daily challenges of these businesses and instead of kind of a phrase from the shop floor to the boardroom, people build businesses, right? So we're here to support. And we just feel really good about that support and guidance position.
How has your ego evolved? I don't mean ego in a negative way, but as just the concept of it. How has your ego evolved over your life and career?
Yeah. So as with any person that tries at leadership, ego and pride are the most dangerous things you can possibly have, right? And so, throughout my career, I've been beaten up and knocked down a lot. And each time I kind of learn. Each time you get knocked off the horse, you learn a little bit more. And I think I've, over the last few years, kind of John 30:30, you must become more, I must become less. So just really focusing on, hey, we're uplifting our management team. We're uplifting the president of this business, not ourselves, right? We don't have to be the loudest voice in the room. We're here to support. Really becoming more of a servant and subservient in many ways, and a softer voice is important. And I think my ego, I've been knocked down a couple times. Ralph, my partner, and I both have. And we both had this discussion. We said, hey, listen, we had these really difficult experiences because if we had just been successful, I don't know that either of us could have handled it. I think we would have thought it was all us. And now, from a faith perspective, we're both very cognizant that the luck we've had in business and the good breaks we've had have been through God and kind of how he's watched over us. And then the grit and perseverance that we've had has been through the daily discipline of praying and asking others for help. So there's been so many people that have helped us along the way that we really don't have a lot of ego in it. And I look back to when Drew Brees got his award for, I think it was the most passes. And he went and wrote a letter to everybody who had caught a ball, had run through the end zone and said, hey, this is your award. You took the licks. You got it in the end zone for me. Right. And I think both Ralph and I look at life and what we're doing that way, in trying to become less and have others become more.
Did you ever struggle with that transition of I am focusing on others? It's not about me.
Yes, and actually have read a lot about pride and ego. There's a book called "The Ego is the Enemy." That's a fascinating book.
Yeah.
Oh, it's an incredible book, and if you look at a lot of great leaders,
Ryan Holiday.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. They fizzle out. They fall. I mean, the Napoleonic complex is like a complex, right? You think you're so great and and then it all comes crashing down. And so really sustainable success, you have to be able to swallow your own ego and lead and understand that, in my case, there's just so many people that are better than me at a lot of things, and to seek their counsel, help, guidance, as opposed to trying to do it myself. Right. And so that transition is tough. You want to control things. You want to be in charge. And that's not always the best way. And in my case, definitely isn't the best way. So making room for others is very important.
No, it's, I've been thinking a lot about that lately, and just, putting my ego to the side, and it's not about me, and it's, and focusing on others. And I've seen it in the past month with our team, and just focus on developing them and training them, because where we're at with our business, it was so much me doing content, me coming up with the ideas, but that's not how you build a business. And so I had to really shift the mindset to focus on how can I develop them? But I think the better way to phrase it is serving them, because it creates a different dimension to it, where it's you're giving to them. It's not development. It seems like you're still trying to get that return on investment type of mentality.
Yeah. You're not top down training them. You're assisting and serving them, right? And that's a great way to do it. We have a leader of one of our HVAC businesses, and he's roll up your sleeves. He's really that way, and he's been an inspiration to us on kind of how to lead. He's got, soft demeanor, humble approach, but he gets stuff done. Everybody's accountable, but he has that kind of servant way about him. It's really refreshing, and it works.
In your profile, you were talking about one of your specialties being Kaizen, and it makes me wonder, how do you think that you have continuously improved over the past 6 months of this crisis? And what does the best version of you look like?
Yeah. So I think ways I've tried to improve, one of them is kind of setting ego aside and building the team. Another, I've read a lot of Stoicism recently, Seneca, Marcus Aurelius, and really emotional control and self-mastery. If you can't master yourself, it's hard to master other things, right? And so when you're in kind of entrepreneurship mode and business building mode, there's a whole host of emotions, right? And you can't always get control of all of those, right? But trying to look at things emotionally and logically, and set the emotion aside has been something that I've really tried to work on in a time where a lot of people are upset, a lot of people are angry, a lot of people are offended, right? And there's a Bible verse that says, a wise man fool gives full vent to his anger, but a wise man keeps himself under control. And so whether it's looking at a legal document and saying, hey, that doesn't exactly work out in my favor, I can be offended at the other side, or I can say, hey, let's have a conversation and see what the other side really means, right? Just simple things like that has really helped me improve personally. For our business, we do AARs, or after action reports. And we go through and say, we may have been successful at a transaction or a business deal or something like that. But instead of saying, hey, we look at all the things we did wrong And then we Kaizen that. We said, okay, how can we do this better, right? How can we make a term sheet better? We got off to a rocky start with a management team at one point in time. And so we said, hey, let's build a management team expectation document. Instead of having it be top down, let's have the president or CEO of the business have a role in building this document with us so that when we work together, right, we know where we stand. We know what and the first thing we say in that is, this is what Coltala is responsible for. This is what you can expect from us. And is there anything else you would like us to do as part of this relationship, right? And so that came out of just, a rocky start and continually improving. We work with a guy named Damon Baker, former Danaher, and just very humble approach, very Socratic, but constantly improving every single day. And that's the word Kaizen is incredible. And if you look, it comes from the Japanese. If you look at the Toyota production system, just a little bit better every day. Another one I grew up on is the Suzuki method of violin. My little brother is one of the top cellists probably in the world. He played at Juilliard, and he actually plays the 200-year-old cello that my grandfather brought over from Austria when he escaped. And Dr. Suzuki says, practice only on the days you eat. So it's just a little incremental every day. And so John Henry, he saw Hillary Hahn, who's pretty famous, do a 100-day practice challenge, online and video it every day. And he said, wow, what if I did a 1,000-day practice challenge? And I believe he's on like 960 or something like that, right? But the discipline and grit to just get a little bit better every day has made him one of the best cellists there are. And so that's what we are all focused on at Coltala, is that daily, just a little bit continuous improvement, both in the business world, but also personally. Ralph and I, we pray together. We work on personal development together. We go to conferences together. We give each other radical candor, right? And I'll ask, hey, I think I screwed that up, Ralph. And he goes, yeah, you kind of did, and vice versa. So it's because we both have that ethos, we're able to, no matter where you start out, if you're getting a little bit better every day, you'll get somewhere. So
maybe kind of the last thing that was what I was curious about is, what advice do you have for transitioning veterans, especially in today's market?
Yeah. So I think, first of all, today is a difficult market, and don't want to minimize that at all, right? You've got a big amount of unemployment, but I would say, find organizations that have a mission that you are interested in, right? If there is not a mission, this is me personally, but if there's not a mission, I think it's very difficult to work within that organization for long. So I'd find that, and then use the kind of the grit that we learn in the military, showing up every day and doing the PT and never quitting. Use that grit, that perseverance, and frankly, that relentlessness to go after those opportunities. And that the whole Wayne Gretzky, you miss every shot you don't take, like, go for it. And I've had veterans beat my door down and say, hey, I want to talk to you about this, and I want to get in this industry. And I'm like, you know what? Okay, you got here somehow, you showed up, here's 2 intros, and some of it's worked, some of it hasn't. But if you build a list and you focus on it and you're relentless and I use the term pleasantly persistent. Don't want to go around having everybody think you have PTSD or you're going to, beat them up or something if they don't give you a job. But informational interviews and being pleasantly persistent with those groups and organizations where you really want to be in. I think that's really important. In this market right now, I'd say in a more friendly market, I would say look for a training program as well. And I've done a few talks about that, but some organizations will hire a veteran just because it's a Navy SEAL and I'm going to put you in the accounting department and you'll crush that because you crush everything. No. Doesn't have a background in accounting. Not a good fit. Right. So I think,
don't know where to start. Like, they're 3 months out and like, I have no idea where to even start. I want to go into finance. Sounds cool. But what are some things some questions and like the decision-making process or just a place to start?
Yeah. And listen, I think this is going to sound boilerplate, but I do think going to an MBA program or some type of transition program is really, really helpful because it gives you a wide swath of what's in there. If you've been in the military for 15 years and then you go and you don't know the difference, and I didn't know this when I went through, but consulting, finance. You want to be an operator. What do you want to be? And so I think getting an experience of an MBA, being able to see a lot of businesses is great. And then looking at a lot of the specific training programs. Goldman has the VIP program. I know that GE has a program, a junior officers program, and so there's a lot of that out there. And so I think pursuing that is really important. And then there's a lot of trade schools too. There's a great trade school in Dallas that we partner with called TRACOM, Training Command. It's run by former Army guy and good friend of ours who went to West Point, and they bring a lot of, they're looking for GI Bill and former military to go into that program. Training Command is like a combatant command. Would be a good guy for you to meet, but they're focused on that and getting into the trades, and you can do great in those businesses too. So
that's awesome. We have covered a ton of ground. What do you think the next couple of years looks like for you and Coltala, and kind of what are you most excited about?
Yeah, I'm really excited about growing our businesses and seeing what impact they'll make. It's already been cool to see with the Kaizen process, they're getting just a little bit better each year. And so excited about growing our firm, and then, bringing other like-minded people into the fray, right? But we're a newer organization. And so we are really excited about that growth. And then excited about serving in the community and kind of the impact we're making in the community as well. We support Carry the Load, which you may be familiar with. Clint Bruce started that. So it's a Memorial Day organization. We actually carry packs with 60, 70 pounds each Memorial Day, like we're carrying our brothers and sisters that we lost overseas. So we support Carry the Load as an organization. We donate money. When we get LinkedIn followers, we donate dollar for dollar those dollars to Carry the Load. We also support in South Dallas an organization called Bonton Farms. It's an inner city farm that's really helped a lot of individuals through that community. The guy who started that's a faith-based guy who really just invested in that area, and so excited to support that as well. So just excited about the growth of our business, what we support in the community, growing as individuals, and having a lot of fun.
How many years have you been married?
15 years. I'm hoping I'm going on 75. So
do you think that you're a better husband now than you were 15 years ago?
I think I'm a better husband marginally than I was 15 years ago. But I'm at a 13 right now, and I need to get to a 90. And so I'm working on it little by little. So
man, this is awesome.
Improvement. My wife's an amazing person, and hopefully I'll be half as good a husband as she is a wife one day.
This is great. Really appreciate the time with this.
No, thanks so much, Jordan. Appreciate you.